Welcome to Finding the Modern Man podcast. Join me, pt.2, your health and performance expert and self-leadership coach, as myself and my guests discuss and uncover what it means to be a man in today's society, empowering you to optimize physical, mental, and emotional health in order to create a life with purpose and passion in the changing world that we live in. Welcome back, my friend, to another episode of Finding the Modern Man podcast. In today's episode, we're going into part 2 of addiction, which we started last time. Now, just a little recap. We went into some of those less acknowledged ways that addictive behavior can express itself in our lives. We also went through some of the statistics and definitions from the ACE studies, the Adverse Childhood Experience studies. We went through a couple of definitions of types of abuse that are less acknowledged or less understood. And then I touched on how addictive behavior can start earlier on in life, from whether our physical, emotional needs are catered for when we are younger or not. Whether we had attuned parenting and the type of parenting that we experienced. The environment in the home. We touched on that. So today, I want to go a little deeper, of course, into these parts of us, into the aspects of us, because we're not always expressing addictive behavior, are we? There are times when we are very calm, very neutral, just at ease. So this is important to look at, because I feel often there's that stigma of I am an addict. I have addictive behavior. I have an addictive personality. Yeah, okay. But you're not in that state all the time. This is where I love the approach of a mind mapping tool that I love using with clients. And that is executive state identification, meaning we are identifying which mental or emotional state of ours is in the executive chair and what the thoughts, actions, and feelings are when that aspect of ourselves comes up into the executive chair and is running the show. So it helps separate us from the true us, the real self, which is at the core of us. It's in there, and we lead from there when we're at our best. But sometimes these layers of circumstance and experience come into play, and that can get in our way. So if we're looking at from the parts perspective, this is also covered in internal family systems, which is a model of psychology that I absolutely adore as well. This part of us, let's call it Andy the addict, right? Let's put a name to it. Andy the addict. Andy started at a time in our lives when we couldn't cope with what was happening around us. So think of Andy as someone who was trying to protect you, an aspect of yourself, an aspect of your psyche, like the facets of a diamond, right? Andy is one of the facets of a diamond that when shines to the light, Andy takes over to help. His sole intention is to help you, but as a kid, we couldn't cope with what was being put on us, what we were experiencing, seeing, hearing around us. So Andy came in and went, don't worry, Pete, I've got this. I'm going to help you because this is overwhelming for you. So what does Andy do? He goes, see that over there? Go raid those bickies. That's great. That'll take your mind off all of this. All right. Oh, computer games, they're fun. That'll help take your mind off all of this pain and overwhelm and all these experiences that you're not sure how to deal with or even make sense of. Go and do that. And so in our younger years, Andy served a purpose. Unfortunately, when it comes to the parts, say with Andy, he still thinks we're 6. He goes, Pete's 6. He needs my help. He can't deal with this on his own. And unfortunately, year after year, as I get older, Andy, the addict, is still thinking I'm 6 and that has to take care of me. And so this changes in our lives. This comes in, and because what happens as we get older, we're introduced to alcohol, drugs, sex, porn, whole myriad of things that we could be addicted to. Food, sugar, exercise. Either way, it's a coping mechanism. It's an internal coping mechanism that served a purpose years ago, but now as a grown adult, when we can rationalize, we can make our own choices. We can lead our own lives. That's self-leadership. We can take self-leadership. We don't need Andy anymore because we're out of that stressful situation. We are out of our original environment, our family of origin. We are often living a life with our own families. We've got our own professional careers. But these parts, like Andy, just keep coming in. And it can create almost like a Jekyll and Hyde experience. I don't know if you've heard this at all or if you're this kind of person, but you get offered a beer, say. It's pretty common these days. When you get a haircut, you get offered a beer. Would you like a beer? Oh, no, mate. Once I have one, I can't stop. Okay. So if we go internal with this, why does Andy just lead from one to another to another to another? Why can't we drink sensibly? All right. Because it's a conditioned response, right? One leads to the next, which just further masks our pain, and we don't have to think about or feel what's really under the hood. Another thing that comes into play with this, and we'll stay on the topic of alcohol for now, because it's something we can all relate to, I'm sure, or most of us at least. From the Chinese perspective, Chinese philosophy, and the kinesiology perspective, and the iridology, looking at health through the iris, we look at the liver and the emotions that go with that energy meridian, that organ. Now, I'll just get a chart and I'm going to read some of these, because when we push alcohol too far, we go, okay, let's have a look at this. It's the liver. What does the liver tell us? And alcohol is a suppressant. So we're suppressing the liver. Okay. What are we suppressing? What thoughts, feelings, emotions do we not want to come to the surface? Do we not want to deal with? Do we not know how to deal with? So let's just have a look at some of these. I'm going to read off a chart. So, emotions of the liver, according to Chinese philosophy: anger, rage, wrath, distress, vengefulness, resentment, righteous indignation, responsibility, happiness, irritability, hostility, contentment or lack thereof, blame and bitterness. How many situations in our lives agitate us, or that trigger that switch of the anger, the bitterness, the rage, the resentment, all that stuff that we've suppressed from when we were kids, or things we haven't suppressed, we just don't know how to deal with. So I'm using this as an example because I feel what I've seen over time, there's this common thread where people say, oh, it's his demons. He's got lots of demons. No, my friend, there are no demons inside you attacking you or leading you to do anything. This is all you. This is all me. We've all had something in our lives that we've had to really struggle hard against. And our true self at the center of all of this, the being who we really are, that awesome human, just has these other aspects, these other parts like Andy that are coming in, taking over the executive chair and running the show. Why? Because of what we experienced when we were young that we couldn't cope with. So now that we've had a look at these examples, I want to take you into a bit of a process. And if you're listening to this in the car or on the go, I would suggest listen to it once through, and then when you're at home or in a quiet, safe space of your own, listen back, have a pen and paper ready, and just follow this. Almost like a guided meditation, right? But let's say you got Andy the addict, or whatever you name that aspect of yourself. I just threw Andy out there. I want you to take a few deep breaths, right? And in and out. And in. Fill those lungs. Breathe out the stress and the harshness of the day. Now, I want you to feel inside yourself here. Close your eyes and feel that addictive aspect of yourself. Where is it in your body? Where do you feel it? Can you see it? And I want you to engage peacefully with this part. I want you to ask it, what is its role? What is it trying to achieve? And see what it says. I want you to ask it now, how old are you? Insert your name. So I would say, how old is Peter? What does it want you to know? Think about when it gives you an age. What was happening in your life back then? And it's not that we can just unravel that right now, but you bring awareness to it and you have compassion towards that aspect of yourself. So if I have compassion towards Andy and I can communicate with that part of myself and go, oh, man, when I feel those cravings or that urge to engage in behavior that's not so great, and I know it's not great, but I get that urge, I get that craving, right? Just like you, I get these cravings as well. And I used to struggle with this, but over time, I've been able to diffuse a lot of that, work through a lot of where that came from in my life. So now it's a lot easier to deal with. I still get those urges and cravings. I'm human, right? I still get these emotions coming up because we're all human. But I can have a conversation with that aspect of myself, that part, and say, yeah, I know. I want to get drunk. Okay, what am I suppressing, man? Like, what are you trying to keep me from right now? All right, what in my life am I trying to distract myself from? I can ask myself questions and separate myself from the urge and start to have a look at what in my life is not working or causing me stress to then engage these old conditioned patterns and parts. Now, this was a very quick run through. One-on-one or in your own time. This takes longer and I want you to take time. Have a feel of this process. Think about what's coming up for you. Communicate with this part and practice it during the week. When you get those urges, just, have a conversation with it. Hey man, I see this is like it's a real moment. Talk to it like you would a friend who's in need, right? Have compassion for yourself. Love yourself. Because if we can change our behavior and our reactions to the way we feel, we're going to then control our reactions and our behavior and how we feel with other people in our lives, other situations, be it at home, or work, whatever situation you're in when you're dealing with humans. This can help. If you can pause, think about it, assess, then you can start thinking about where other people may be coming from and understanding what pain they might be going through or distracting themselves from. Take that into consideration, and then this comes into the pillar of communication, right? Communication with ourselves, communication with others is then going to grow, improve. And when our behavior changes, that automatically will affect whether it's our staff, our kids, our partners, our friends. People will see that change and they will react differently as well. So this is one step. Of course, this was brief. It was an introduction to this process. There is more to it, but this is a way to get a little more knowledge of internally, because we do have a lot of the answers ourselves. We can do a lot for ourselves emotionally, supportive wise. We can speak to that younger part of ourselves and give it the love, understanding, and nurturing it didn't get when we were kids and these parts like Andy came into play. That can really help too. But we must be compassionate. We must be nurturing in this process. And please give it a go over the next week or two. Write it down. Write down these questions. Write down these steps. Give it a go. And I hope you got something from this. Thank you again for tuning in, listening. And if you like this, share it with a friend. If you got something from it, share it. Discuss it together. That way it's like a workshop. It's going to embed in the mind a lot better that way. Thank you again, and see you next episode. Just a friendly reminder that what we discussed today does not constitute personalized advice. If you're planning on making significant changes to your life, creating a pathway suited to your specific needs is recommended. If this is you, feel free to get in touch, book an appointment, as I would love to help you reach your goals and your version of success. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next episode.